What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from AlexCFE, and today we have another deck profile. So today I'm going to be bringing you one of my more fun decks actually recently that I have been playing. I think with the history collection updates, I don't think I brought any update really to this deck for quite a while on the channel, and this is always one of my pet decks, one of my decks that I'm always going to have fun with and just play it. I love Kagero, so today we're going to be talking about Premium Eugene, its implications, what it can do, good matchups, bad matchups, and just the overall build overall. So we are going to hop right into it. I'm not going to bog us down anymore. Starting off with the main boss unit, obviously we are going to go with Eugene. So I'm not really going to go over the skill of Eugene because we don't really care about his skill, we care more about his name, what he enables us to do, a multi-attack on the Vanguard with some support cards. We'll go over it in the grade 1 kind of lineup, but overall, just need him. Don't really want to ride him first. Instead, what we want to do is ride into Blade Master. Now, of course, Blade Master and the Stride is definitely one of the weaker ones out of History Collection. Like, there's no doubt about it. Kagero as a clan is in a very weird kind of spot until we get maybe some order that might make it a little bit better for Premium for the Overlord build. But as of right now, I still think this might be the strongest Kagero build that we do have, and we need a Blade Master package in here. You need to find this. If you're going first, you want to ride this, you want to get those 2 markers. If not, we kind of go into the Eugene play. It's no big deal either way. If you're going second and go into that Blade Master play, you probably will end up losing 9 times out of 10. Over here, we are going with another grade 3 in the grade 3 lineup over there. Yep, we are going to go with Blazing Flare Dragon. So this was definitely a main feature when we were running Eugene Lawkeeper, but since we do have access to this now, I think it's just a better first ride, obviously for the reasons I just explained, but this still fits into the deck. This still retires, this still soul charges, still gains power, kind of does everything that we want to do. Very easy to search it out as well, so we do include 3 copies of that, and I'm also including 2 copies of this. This is just like the alternate art, the reprint, the promo that just came out, but this is still Best Harvest. Like, most people are still leaving things on the field. There aren't a ton of decks. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head that are still completely ghosting or phantoming their entire field. So I still think this can net us a really decent card advantage. And in this game, we want to apply pressure and just have hand advantage to kind of get us through over and over multi-attack Vanguard turns. So I still think this is good. If you want to, you can maybe cut one of these. I've been thinking about putting ladder in, but right now I'm still just keeping that too. I'll show you something else you might be able to slot ladder in for. But moving on to our grade 2 lineup, that's it for the grade 3s right here. We are going to go with 4 of the grade 2 fixer. This is by Attack Dragon. So essentially this is the pitch, go find a grade 2 or grade 1, which is actually very important in this deck. The skill isn't 100% necessary for the Soul Blast, choose a column, retire all. We have retire things in the deck. That's not a big deal. What this does for us really is finds grade 1s that are necessary for Eugene, and it just makes it a little bit more consistent. And when you're playing it, I feel like this is honestly a big upgrade to the deck in a way, just to have that consistency and have what you need kind of at your fingertips. So I do like that, and I think it is a welcome fit to the deck. Over here, 3 of the Dustin, still for power, just recyclable. Not recyclable, I'm sorry. This still retires, takes stuff from your hand, cycles it in that way. So take stuff from your hand, put it into your soul, draw a card. Little card draw is always good. Cycling, giving a soul, which is pretty rare in Kagero. If you don't get too many things that give you soul outside of that and that. So over here, Dragon Dancer at Fremma. You can blow up a whole column with this, but more importantly, it gives you boost a little bit later into the game when you're really trying to stack columns. Your opponent, blocks out your Vanguard. That attack didn't go through. Okay, all the stuff's on my rear guard. It's boosted by a 10k, which could potentially be getting power from elsewhere as well, making it 20k, 20 plus. This boost really does actually come up in a couple different matchups. I do personally like this. When you're going into other force matchups, you have to try to stack your columns as big as possible. Excel matchups, not that there are a ton of Excel decks right now in the current meta, but I think that this definitely helps us with some of the force matchups in general, and anything that uses a grade 3 from Overdress to give them 13k base. Next up into the grade 1s, since we have so many different grade 3s, I'm just running the regular top 5 grade 3 searcher, Lava Flow. You can put in, if you want, the specific Dragonic Blade Master one, but I think at this point, if you're going second, that one becomes a little bit more of a dead card. This one is still pretty much useful. This also has a 10k shield. I forget if that one does as well. I'm not sure if those were updated. I completely forgot off the top of my head, but I just kind of like this one. You can search out any of these grade 3s. Also, you have orders over here with the grade 3, so that is still viable as well. Next up, 2, we are still running 3 Heat Shot. Again, top 7 search when written upon. Finding out any of the grade 3s that you want. I personally really like this card. Deck thinning is deck winning. On top of that, you do get a card draw for a Counter Blast and a Soul Blast, as well as popping one of your opponent's back row rear guard. So very strong. I think it's just a really good Kagero generic. Run in most non-Overlord decks, I think. I'm not sure if it's run in Overlord off the top of my head. I haven't thought about that build for quite a while over here. But we are going to get into the meat and potatoes of it. Assault Bullet of Dust Storm, Oswald. So really, I think my last Overlord profile, my last Eugene profile did have this. This game is still pretty much stayed the same. You want to go on to Eugene, then Stride, and then whatever you're boosting will restand, so 2 attacks with your Vanguard. 28k base plus a booster is nothing to scoff at, especially with a lot of the Kagero skills. You could get an additional drive, could get an additional power, crit, things of that nature, so this actually does become scary, and the threat of multi-attack is always there, and this guy definitely just helps us do it. Now, if you are facing something that has a lot of interruption and interaction, yeah, this is gonna suffer greatly. If you have something that has resist on the field, this needs to have an absolute clear field, so if your opponent has resist, it's really difficult to get around some of that stuff, so this deck definitely does have its limitations, but at the same time, it feels a lot better than you think it would against like a large majority of matchups. And if they don't have the tools to like deal with the pressure, I'm not saying this is a tier 1A meta stomper deck, like definitely isn't, but if they don't have the tools or the wherewithal to kind of like anticipate what is coming, you could hit like a truck and really come out of nowhere with it. So it is fun, and this kind of helps us enable that. Also, this over here is a new tool. I don't think we've kind of gone over it in our previous build that I had on the channel, so I will talk about it here. Wild Bullet of Duststorm. This is Clifton. So Clifton is one of the newer cards. Like I said, when this card attacks or boosts, if your opponent's rearguard was retired by the ability of your Vanguard this turn, this guy gets 2k until the end of turn for each of your opponent's open rearguard circles. Pretty cool. A lot of obviously the Vanguard abilities do retire, which is great. Also, at the end of battle, this boosted. If you have a Vanguard with Eugene in its card name, retire this unit, choose up to 3 cards from your soul, choose up to 1 or more cards, return them to your deck and shuffle it. Again, this doesn't say normal units, I don't think. Yeah, so it's not limited. You can put back triggers if you accidentally soul charge them, or you put them off of one of these two over here. Completely up to you, but the counter charge is really big because I'm going to talk about the Stride when we get to it. I think there's a Stride that uses a counterblast that we really actually rely on a little bit more these days than we did previously. But lastly, finishing up our grade 1 round out, this is the other card you could swap in for ladder if you really wanted to. This is Voluntrooper Dragon. So at the beginning of your main phase, if your opponent has no rearguards, call this guy to rearguard circle, and then also you can counterblast 1, retire this unit, act on rearguard circle, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, retire it, and then retire all the opponent's rearguards with that same grade. So if your opponent spams let's say, I don't know, field of grade 2s, field of grade 3s, 1s, 0s, whatever it is, like pop those. So there's going to be really annoying units, do things to you, very actually like difficult to kind of deal with. This guy just helps you do it. So I think a mass board wipe like that sometimes for just the counterblast is definitely worth it. And in my opinion, I'm just running it at 1 of. It is what it is. Getting into the triggers now, this is just a proxy. I would still stick with the Dragon Empire one, but let me just explain. I think I've gone over this previously, but the Oswald, when you boost Eugene and you're on top of a Stride, that will pretty much negate the effects of the Dragonic, the Dragon Empire Overtrigger, because when this attacks, you boost, not the end of battle. I don't know why they couldn't give us end of battle. Like, that would make this so much better, but unfortunately it is what it is. I was testing it with the blue also, hence why I'm just sticking in the vanilla for now. I think that the blue is valid as well, but a lot of times, your opponent does PG your Vanguard. There's counter things to get around that at this point, but do whatever one you really feel like. I think you can't go wrong with either one. Red is an interesting choice too for a little bit more multi-attack, but overall I think blue or the Dragonic Dragon Empire one are probably the best. Grade 3s, we are running the grade 3 heals over here. I don't think there's anything more to say about it. Don't necessarily need the counter charge, soul charge. Like, we don't really run into a resource issue necessarily the same way that this might have way back when. I think that with the counter charge off of this, some of the soul charge that we have, you're pretty much fine at the end of the day. So I think that running these grade 3s, really limiting your damage that you take early on into the game is super big in this, because if you get rushed down, don't really have a successful turn, you're banking on getting to your second Stride. Like, just being completely honest, like, you're not going to win on first Stride. Most decks don't, but this deck especially not, and you're not going to generate enough advantage to really like sway and absolutely turn the tide of the game and drain their hand, so to speak. So I do like 4 of those. Don't need the counter charger ones. I would reverse the ratios on this. I'm running right now 4 of the Stride crit. I'm running 3 of this one. I think I have the other one. I have 4 of them in my Overlord. Just didn't want to switch, honestly, since I've updated that, but I am going to be, if I was to bring this to a serious tournament, whatever, I would swap in 4 of these. Just the ability to draw defensively is huge. 15k shield still. It feels really good. I do personally like this one over here. You could also just toss in soul, give your Vanguard a little bit more power. It is just to the end of that battle, but at the same time, drawing a card, again, is just really, really great. I am also going to be talking about this right here. We are running 4 of the regular draw PGs. Now, the reason for this is because Dumg in our G zone, which we'll go over in a second, I feel like I need to talk about that, but 4 is, I think, correct here. You're not running the Elementaria. You could if you really want to. You can run Elementaria in the main deck, but I think the way this deck is built and is played out is kind of lent itself to running 4 Sentinels and also 1 of the Conroe. So let's get into the G zone. I'm going to toss those over here. Let's talk about some of these units now. So obviously, since we're running the Blade Master, it's no surprise we are running the Mahmoud over here just to kind of flip and get those markers onto our Vanguard circles. Have to do it. It is what it is. It's really poor effect, honestly. Just when it hits the Vanguard, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it. Just, I guess, really old school, classic Kagero kind of stuff. 2 of the Dumjid, and let's talk about this for a second, because I think this is mainly the stride most of the times that you want to go in. Once you have one of these turns, unless your opponent is at really low damage, if they're at like 3 to 5, I think this is the point to kind of go into 3 to 4, 5 maybe you can do whatever, but 3 to 4, I think this is the point to go into this, just because your opponent most likely will not want to gamble, and they'll drop the G guard, they'll drop whatever, and if they hard guard, like great, they got all those cards out of their hand. When this guy is placed, you counterblast 1, turn a card from your G zone face up, and then choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it. Gets 15k until the end of turn for each of your sentinels and drop. So again, that's what we're running for. And again, I go into this more than I thought previously. This has really come to be, I guess, the mainstay of the deck in a lot of different ways. The Barcot's good. There is another card too we will talk about in a second, but when your opponent's Sentinel or G-Guard is placed, you may stand this unit, and it's blazing. You get -1 until the end of turn. So essentially, you would swing with Eugene underneath Dumjid, so it's a Dumjid. Boost with Dustin. You would swing, and then you would counterblast 1 to restand this off of the Dustin. I think, oh yeah, I'm getting the names mixed up. Oswald. I'm sorry, Oswald. So you stand him again, and then after that, you swing 1 more time. And again, if your opponent puts down that G-Guard or whatever it is, the Sentinel, you just go and you stand this guy if it's blazing. Like, 3 attacks a little bit more safely. Putting it in your opponent's control drains their resources a little bit more than just pushing and aggroing your way through. The way I was testing this deck at 1.2 is a ton of stand triggers still, just to stand the Oswald, so that, even though it has 1 drive, like, you might still hit that stand, and however many counterblasts you have open, you can then go and just keep the loop going for however many counterblasts. But that's really my spiel on Dumjid. I think it is pretty much a lot more of a mainstay of this deck than it used to be. 2 of the Barricats over here, great card. Just, simple, easy. If you want to have a more transitory turn, I think this is a really good option to do that. When it attacks, you just flip a card from your G zone, you get an extra crit, 10k, you get an extra drive. Also, if your opponent has no rear guards, you then get, all your rear guards get an additional 10k, making it a little bit bigger, kind of buffs up your field, just makes your rear guards actually threatening. Again, if you have an opponent you're facing with a lot of interaction on your board, like, does kind of suck. This deck is not the greatest to kind of plow through that, but putting a lot of pressure through the van, potentially restanding it again, it's just 1 drive, but doing that again is just kind of tough for them to deal with. And then over here, Mr. Guaranteed kind of 3 restand. If you are going first, and if you really want to pressure your opponent and make sure that, like, if you think that 3 restands will do it for you, kind of go into this over here. So Flare Arm, Ziegenberg, GB3, which should be live, essentially, especially if you went first and you went into the Blade Master package. Essentially, you get to counterblast, choose the same number of cards from your hands, the number of rear guards your opponent have. You basically discard them, and then if you do, you basically restand this unit, gets drive -2. You could do that, and then swing Oswald, and then restand it again, and then swing for the 3rd time. So the first one wouldn't be boosted by Oswald, but the second would be, and it restands, goes to the 3rd. It's actually pretty tough to kind of get through that if your opponent doesn't have like 3 PGs or a lot of guard in hand. They went for kind of like a kill turn, so to speak, and are kind of, recouping their hand, not really didn't farm up the way they should have. This could be the end of it. And, 2 Vanguard attacks, it's not unheard of in this game at this point. 3 is still very difficult to deal with for the most part, so pick and choose when you want to go into that. I think the more practice you have with the deck, the more you know when to kind of pull the trigger on that. One of these Zanbust Dragon, just a tool to have if your opponent goes really wide, you think you can plus super hard off of that, maybe just go for it. But I don't really go into it too often. This is the placeholder. Let me just get it for my Messiah right here. I have a couple Messiahs. I just don't like to keep them sitting in my decks, but have a Messiah there just for the ticket. If you don't have it, sure, bump up. I think 1 more like Dumjid would be good. I don't know what to tell you. It's an expensive card. I don't blame you if you don't have it. But the new Stride deck sets should really help with that, getting access to a lot of different people to that card. Flaming Chicken, aka Denial Griffin, super good card. Just really the backbone of this deck in a lot of different ways. This is the reason you actually have multiple turns. Without this, I feel like this deck would kind of just fall flat in the water and be an entire like half tier down. This is just such a good card. Running it at a 3 of, I think it's a bare minimum. Need to do it. It's just one of the best cards. It's been reprinted a bunch of times, so it is cheap. 1 of, just to kind of fill it in there if you want. I honestly don't even quite remember. Counterblast 1. Pay the cost if you do. This guy gets 10k. Yeah, for each of your opponent's open rear guards. Okay, that's certain situations, that'll be good. And then one of the Blaze Dragon Dance Selima, just because pseudo PG is always decent to kind of have. If you need it in that situation, you can go for it. It's good to just have the access to it, but that's really the deck. I want to give a big shout out to Tommy, aka Schneezferno on Twitter. He helped me really craft this deck and play tested a bunch, so I think that this is pretty much as good as it's going to get right now for Eugene. For Kagero, you know, Overlord is still Overlord. You could do Overlord things, like, sure. If you want a little bit more consistent, you want a little bit more of like a toolbox in your wheelhouse, so to speak, I think that this deck might be the way to lean. A lot of different options, a lot of different play style kind of differences I noticed between me and him, but, you know, you have options of what to go into at different times. I think that in the right hands, this could be a decent deck, you know, somewhere sitting at like tier 2.5, something like that. But again, like I said, it could come out of nowhere, could hurt your opponent pretty hard, hit pretty hard. We have some cool, neat tricks in here, and I wouldn't be surprised if I saw this top locals or even win it altogether. So thank you guys so much for viewing over here. If you guys are interested in purchasing any of the cards you see here today, do have a TCG Player affiliate link down in the description below. Absolutely no cost to you. You could help support the channel by shopping through that link. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys in advance. And if you guys are enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like on the video, possibly consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you in advance. This is Alex from Alex CFE, signing out.